Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast Special Edition show, College Football Preview and Predictions Part 3. This is going to be the Big Ten, where I go over the standings I project for each team. And then I'm going to predict the Big Ten championship game and do some odds with you. All right. So, in first place in the conference, I have 11-1 overall, 8-1 in conference play, the Ohio State Buckeyes. To me, they're the team to beat in the conference. Will Haller comes in at quarterback. Good running backs in Trevion Henderson and Quinton Judkins, who comes from Ole Miss. The receivers aren't as good as they usually are. The offensive line's good, which is going to help. Their pass rush is still the strength of their team. All senior. The secondary's awesome, too. Their linebackers are really good. But this is a stacked team. They'll miss Marvin Harrison Jr. a lot, but I think that they have the talent to overcome the loss of Harrison. Second place in the conference, 11-1 overall, 8-1 in conference play. The Penn State Nittany Lions. So I have them listed second. But I have them tied for first technically with Ohio State and one other team. They have that junior trio of Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, and Katron Allen at quarterback and running backs respectively. Julian Fleming comes over as a transfer. They still have the tight end Tyler Warren. They have a decent offensive line, but they do lose pieces on that. Their pass rush is still really good. Their secondary is really good. They have good special teams as well. Good home field advantage. They do lose a lot of talent. Ilumia Fashano and Chop Robinson and Theo Johnson, they're all big losses. And Caden Wallace, of course. So, Penn State does, I think, have the talent to overcome the losses. Third, or tied for first, I should say, 11-1 overall, 8-1 in conference play, the Oregon Ducks. Coming over from the Big Ten, I think they're going to fit, or coming over from the Pac-12, I think they're going to fit right in. Dylan Gabriel comes over from Oklahoma. They have a good running back in Jordan James, good receivers. And Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart, the transfer. Terrence Ferguson's still there at tight end. I like their tackles, but their interior of their line's unproven. They have an okay pass rush, but the strength of their defense is their secondary. They do have good special teams as well. I think they're going to miss Troy Franklin a little bit. Jackson Powers Johnson's a big loss. So is Stephen Jones. Bucky Irving could end up being a big loss too. Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel from a talent standpoint and how their coach likes to fit with things. I think that the quarterback thing will be no problem. In fourth, ninth overall, 7-2 in conference play, the Michigan Wolverines, I think they take a step back after winning the championship. Jim Harbaugh leaves and goes to the Niners, and taking over for him will be Sherrone Moore, who did a really good job as their offensive coordinator and their acting head coach when Harbaugh got suspended last year. So their offense, MJ Morris replaces JJ. They have decent receivers, but their strength of their team is still the strength of their team. They have really good pass rushers. Derek Moore's still there. Kenneth Grant's still there. Josiah Stewart. And their secondary is pretty good too. And they have really good special teams. And I think that there's a little bit of FU potential with this team in terms of, you're doubting us. We lost all these pieces. We lost J.J. Roman, Blake, Zach Zinter, Chris Jenkins. They have so many big losses on their team all over the map. So, that is obviously not ideal for the Wolverines. Coming in fifth, I have 9th overall, 7-2 in conference play, the Iowa Hawkeyes. I think Iowa's going to be pretty good. I think they get some schedule out. Caden McNamara, the former Michigan quarterback, still their quarterback. They have a really good offensive line, which is going to help the running game. They have a good tight end in Luke Lachey. Their secondary is excellent. Their linebackers are really good. So, yeah, they lose Cooper DeJean, but I think their veterans will help that loss a little bit. 6th, 8-4 overall, 5-4 in conference play, the Maryland Terrapins. Maryland, I always fall for the trap of Maryland. I feel like they disappoint me every year. I always pick them to do better than expected with Tolia Tagovailoa when he was there. They're really good at receiver. MJ Morris, by the way, replaces Tolia. Roman Hempe's still there, that running back. They have a decent pass rush, and their secondary is pretty good too. So they lose Tolia, and they lose some other guys. They had a couple of transfer losses as well. 7th in the conference, 6-6 overall, 4-5 in conference play. The USC Trojans. I think USC is going to flop in year one in the Big Ten. I know Lincoln Riley's their coach, and Clay Helton's no longer their coach, but I just don't think this USC team is going to be a contender right away in the Big Ten. I think Caleb Williams is such a big loss for them. I know they really like Miller Moss, who played well in the bowl, but I don't trust him. And they don't have any standout players really on offense. Bear Alexander is a good defensive lineman. He had too many big losses. No Caleb Williams. Brendan Rice is gone. Marshawn Lloyd's gone. Taj Washington's gone. But they have too many losses I think they'll overcome. So I think this is a semi-rebuild year for USC. And I think there's going to be some morons in the media questioning Lincoln Riley, but I just think that they're going to be the flop of this conference this year. In 8th, 5-7 overall, 4-5 in conference play. The UCLA Bruins. UCLA, I'm not a fan of this team either. Arian Foster's the new head coach. They do have decent pass catchers and a good running back. And I don't think their defense is very good. They have some key losses, including Latu Latu, which is going to be a hard one to overcome. And then the Murphys, they lose as well. In 9th, I have 6-6 overall, 4-5 in conference play. The Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern always surprises us, I feel like, each and every year. Pat Fitzgerald's not the coach there anymore. Now is David Braun. He is in year 2. He gained the full-time job, and at the end of last season, he deserves it. He did an awesome job. Veteran-laden team on offense. Their defense has some decent players as well that have been around. Coming in 10th, 7-5 overall, 4-5 in conference play, the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana's just a team full of transfers. Let's just be real here. They only have a couple guys that are technically returning guys. But yeah, too many transfers. That's my take on this Indiana team. And my questions are, like, how well will they mesh? 11th, 6-6 overall, 4-5 in conference play, the Illinois Fighting Illini. Illinois is an interesting team. They have a good offensive line, which is going to help the running game and the passing game. Give the quarterback protection. Good secondary, decent linebackers. No significant pass rush. The big loss here is Jerzon Newton. Coming in 12th, I have 6-6 overall, 3-6 in conference play. The Washington Huskies, I think they also take a step back in the move to the Big Ten from the Pac-12. Them and USC, I think, are the big flops. Obviously, Washington loses its coach to Alabama. Jed Fish takes over for Kalen DeBoer, who goes to Alabama. But yeah, Washington just has some Arizona transfers all over the roster. They have a couple returning guys on defense, but too many big losses to overcome. Just like USA, they lose Penix, they lose Vitano, Odunze, Dylan Johnson, Braylon Trice. Yeah, too many losses that they would have to overcome. 13th, 5-7 overall, 3-6 in conference play. Michigan State Spartans. Michigan State is irrelevant and has been irrelevant for over 5 years now. They had a nice little run. in the mid-2010s, beating Ohio State and beating Michigan with Mark D'Antonio, and then they let him go. They hired Jonathan Smith to be their coach. And the funny thing is, wasn't their old coach from Oregon State also? Oh, Colorado. That's right. Mel Tucker was from Colorado. So let's see if Jonathan Smith works out. They do have some Oregon State guys coming in that could help them. They have some veterans on defense. But yeah, I don't see this team making a bowl. Bottom line. 15. 5-7 overall, 2-7 in conference play. The Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm not a fan of this Minnesota team either. They have some veterans on the roster. Their pass rush is good, and they're gonna have good special teams too. 16th, 4-8 overall, 2-7 in conference play. The Nebraska Cornhuskers. Starting a true freshman in Dylan Raiola. That's always risky, but sometimes it works out. You've seen it with Florida State, with Winston, and with Jordan Travis. That worked out really well. I don't think Trevor Lawrence was Clemson's starter as a freshman. Or he could have been. I don't really remember. I know he definitely started as a sophomore. Nebraska does have a good defense. Jabari Butler, Ty Robinson, and a decent secondary, which will bode well for them. 17th, 4-8 overall, 2-7 in conference play. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Rutgers does have some senior talent coming back. Kyle Mononegi at running back. Aaron Lewis at DN. Two good defensive backs. They have a good kicker. Their quarterback is probably the worst in the conference, which is why they're so low. 17th, 4-8 overall, 2-7 in conference play. The Wisconsin Badgers. I think Wisconsin's going to be an absolute disaster this year. They're going to be like the Colorado of the Big Ten. Tyler Van Dyke comes over from Miami. He stunk. Not stunk, but like he wasn't that good. Their running game could be good. They have some decent offensive linemen, but their pass rush is like non-existent. They lose Braylon Allen, big loss. So yeah, bottom line is I'm not high on this Wisconsin team in Luke Fickell's second season. And maybe we're talking about him as a hot seat guy. And at the bottom, 2-10 overall, 1-8 in conference with the Purdue Boilermakers. I'm not a fan of this Purdue team at all. Ryan Walters in year 2. They have a good offensive line, so they're going to be able to run the ball. Some big losses. Tyrone Tracy, special teams, and he was a running back that was really good for them. So, yeah, I'm not high on this Purdue team. Big Ten championship. I'm going with the obvious. I'm going with Ohio State over Oregon. You have two really, really good teams. You have Ryan Day and Ohio State. Ryan Day, I think, is motivated to shed the narrative around him. And Dan Lanning in year 1, the Big Ten, I think he has a chip on his shoulder. And I think Penn State's going to be awesome as well. Bold prediction for this conference. I forgot to do one for the Big 12, so I'll do a Big 12 prediction after this. My prediction for the Big Ten is that there will be more than 2 coaching changes. I think that Greg Schiano's on the hot seat at Rutgers. I won't be shocked if Fickell's out at Washington. If Ohio State goes less than 10-2, would you be stunned if Ryan Day's let go? But yeah, there's a lot of coaches I think are kind of hot seat-ish. I mean, what if Matt Rule flops again? I don't think they'll let him go. I mean, could, in theory, PJ Fleck get fired? I feel like he's on the hottest seat of any coach in this conference. Another one, well, I know Kurt Signetti comes over from James Madison with Indiana, so I think he's in good shape. So, yeah, I think there's going to be more than 2 coaching changes in this conference. And then a Big 12 prediction, I am going to say that Jalen Daniels will be in New York for the Heisman Trophy. I love Jalen Daniels. He was very good last year before he got hurt, and I think he and his coach have revived Kansas football in a significant way. Remember when Kansas was the joke of college football? Now they are a contender in the Big 12. All right, so conference winners of Big 10. Ohio State's plus 145, Oregon 2-1, Penn State's 5-1, Michigan 9-1, USC's 20, Iowa's 39, Nebraska's 50, Wisconsin's 50, Washington's 110, Maryland's 150, Minnesota's 170, Indiana 200, UCLA 250, Michigan State 300, Illinois 300, Purdue 400, Northwestern 500, and I want to see Rutgers because I don't have the Rutgers odds in front of me, so I'm just going to check that really quick. But in the meantime, win totals, Big 10, Illinois 5.5, Indiana 5.5, Iowa 8.5, Maryland 6.5, Michigan 8.5, Minnesota 4.5, Nebraska 7.5, Northwestern 4.5, Ohio State 10.5, Oregon 10.5, Penn State 9.5, Purdue 4.5, UCLA 4.5, USC 7.5, Washington 6.5, and Wisconsin 6.5. My favorite's under for Wisconsin plus 118. I just don't like this Badgers team at all, and I think they don't have a lot of talent whatsoever. And I just think that they need to rebuild in that league. Yeah, so now I'm going to check Vegas Insiders. So 110-1 is Rutgers, FanDuel. And then the win total for Rutgers. Ooh. How come I don't see Rutgers? That's weird. Yeah, the Rutgers win total isn't posted, which is very, very strange. But yeah, that wasn't the one I was touching anyway. So, and then the value pick for the conference, I forgot to give out. From a value standpoint, Iowa 39-1 I like, but it's not worth it. Yeah, I don't like any of these long shots in the Big Ten. I mean, Penn State at 5-1, I guess you can make a case has some value if they go 2-0 against Oregon and Ohio State, which is asking for a lot. I think that could have some value with Penn State. So, there you have it for the Big Ten. Next up will be the SEC.